while you're busy writing emotional manifestos, typing away like you're trying to save a relationship from extinction, performing emotional gymnastics just to look like the sensitive, approachable prince. There's a guy on the other side who barely says hey, and yet he's the one living rent-free in her head. Harsh, right? Take a breath. It gets worse. She's the one chasing him. And no, that's not a plot twist. It's just confirmation that the real world doesn't follow a rom-com script. It follows emotional natural selection. The cold man doesn't reply. Congratulations, he's commanding the room with his silence. You, on the other hand, try so hard to be understood that you look like a walking billboard for desperation. An indifferent man is a threat, and like anything that poses a threat, he is respected. You're the sweet guy, the emotionally intelligent one, as accessible as public Wi-Fi, and you're being discarded. Not out of malice, out of predictability. If you keep competing for Nice Guy of the Year, your only prize will be a participation trophy for being a functional idiot. This compulsive need of yours to be understood is just a gourmet version of classic neediness. Every justification, every attempt to be honest with your feelings is just another shovelful of dirt on the grave of your self-respect. You aren't explaining yourself. You're shrinking yourself under the guise of affection. Now write this down. Coldness isn't rudeness. It's emotional self-defense. It's the code of respect. It's the reminder that you weren't born to be anyone's therapeutic doormat. The cold man doesn't need to be loved. He needs to be understood as someone who doesn't need external validation to breathe. And you know what that creates? Fear, admiration, imitation. While you're practicing your long paragraphs, he's practicing his absence. And he's winning. By the way, before we move on, this video didn't land here by divine revelation. It wasn't the universe conspiring in your favor. It was the algorithm. And the algorithm, my friend, doesn't move on compassion, it moves on clicks. So, if you're sitting there with that grumpy face, soaking up free content while playing the enlightened victim, do the basics, like, comment, subscribe. Even if it's just to maintain the illusion that you still have control over something. Now let's get to the favorite part, the emotional gut punch. Number 1, the wet dog effect. You know that soaked dog shivering in the cold, still wagging its tail at the person who just kicked it? Congratulations. You've embodied that scene perfectly. All you're missing is the sad whimper and the puppy dog eyes. The difference is that the dog, at least, has the dignity not to send 3 consecutive texts with heart emojis and a 3-minute voice note apologizing for existing. You call that intensity? The audience calls it pathetic predictability. You think you're being deep? You're just drowning in your own neediness. And the worst part, you're doing it while posing as a sensitive hero. But nobody builds altars for emotional martyrs. Admiration isn't bought with desperate exposure. A man who begs doesn't just lose respect. He loses the right to be taken seriously. Because weakness, my friend, doesn't need a caption, it overflows. It's in the anxious rhythm of your typing, the sappy tone of your good morning, the desperation of someone who says thank you, even for being ignored with class. You've become her emotional mascot, an emotional poodle with an invisible leash and zero authority. But let's get to the main point. She isn't the problem. You are. You're the one who needs to justify every feeling like you're in emotional court. You're the one who bows your head when she raises her voice. You're the one who chases when she vanishes. You're the one who thinks offering more affection solves rejection. Congratulations on digging your own emotional grave with kindness flowers. Spoiler, nobody respects a beggar. They just watch out of pity and then they discard. Now, feel this slap. You're confusing attention with connection. You think you're building a bond, but you've actually become an emotional lab rat. Every time you react, she takes a note. Every time you try to get closer, she measures you. And when she realizes you have no boundaries, you become exactly that. Disposable. Worthless. Affection on the clearance rack. Meanwhile, the cold guy, he reigns in silence. He doesn't chase. He doesn't plead. He doesn't need to put on an emotional circus. He simply doesn't react. And that absence alone makes more noise than all your needy voice notes combined. Still think your sincerity is moving? How cute. She tolerates you the way one tolerates a puppy. Cute at first, then just an annoying noise wanting a lap. You think you're being special, but you're just a rerun in her series called Desperation Masked as Care. Thousands like you are trying to buy respect with emotional exposure. But respect, my dear, isn't negotiated. It's imposed with coldness. And the most tragic part? You still believe that if you try just a little harder, she'll see your value. That she'll notice your devotion. That she'll be moved by your vulnerability. Illusion is a powerful drug. But hold on to this uncomfortable truth. She already gets it. She's seen it since your first move. She knows you're weak. She knows you're too available. And that is exactly why the spark is gone. The respect evaporated. And the reply became a myth. You know what she respects? The silence that screams. The absence without explanation. The lateness that commands presence. The gaze that doesn't beg. Because humans only respect what they can lose, and they fear what they cannot control. But here you come, with your old belief that coldness is insensitivity. That being cold is being distant. When in fact, it's the opposite. Coldness is the final sign of someone who still values themselves. You're the only one who hasn't noticed. And maybe you never will, until you become an irrelevant memory in her contact list. Number 2, coldness isn't indifference, it's discipline. If you still think being cold means becoming an apathetic lamppost with a "who am I" expression, congratulations, you've already started wrong. Real coldness isn't the face of a bad TV show psychopath. It's absolute control. It's the silent power of someone who feels everything but reveals nothing. And that, my friend, is the true danger. Because no one knows what you're going to do, or when. And that is exactly why you are respected. While the emotional guy rushes to justify everything, explaining every sigh and tripping over his own anxiety to be understood, the cold man observes. He doesn't react, he chooses. And that choice, silent and strategic, is worth more than 1,000 sappy self-help quotes. The cold guy isn't stuck. He's concentrated. He doesn't ignore, he analyzes. He doesn't pretend he doesn't care. He's just not your emotional chew toy. While you bark like an offended poodle over a passive-aggressive joke, he raises an eyebrow and gives that half smirk that says, "Was that it? What a waste of an attempt." And that's where the fear starts. Not horror movie fear, but that silent discomfort of someone realizing they have no power over you. Because anything inaccessible becomes a desire. Anything hard to read becomes a legend. And you, with your manual of predictable reactions, became the opposite. An open book with a boring ending. Coldness is discipline. It's feeling your ego flare up, your pride screaming, your anger boiling. And yet, choosing silence, not out of weakness, but out of mastery. The emotional man replies because he can't help himself. The cold man doesn't reply because he doesn't need to. And that difference is what separates men from decorative figures in the emotional game. You want respect? Then learn. A cold man doesn't impose himself by shouting. He imposes himself through control. He doesn't need to prove his strength, he is the strength. His silence is more disturbing than the attack of any sensitive man begging for validation, because true impact isn't in the reaction, it's in the absence of one. Now, of course, the emotional guy will hear this and come to the brilliant conclusion, so I just have to pretend I don't feel anything. No, genius. It's not about pretending. It's about feeling everything and being dominated by nothing. It's watching the chaos form around you and staying calm, because you understood it all before the first spark even flew. That's not apathy. That's anticipation. That's mastery. That's presence. And there lies the secret. The cold man doesn't attract because he forces his presence. He attracts because he is presence. He's a walking mystery. He's the type everyone wants to decode and nobody can. And the more they try, the more he dominates the game. Because in the end, true power isn't being admired. It's being untamable. And coldness, my friend, is the uniform of those who have already figured that out. Number 3. Mystery is the new power. Your greatest talent, giving yourself away entirely before the story even begins. You truly believe you're building a connection. But spoiler, you're building emotional boredom wrapped in predictability. And predictability, my friend, is what turns desire into disdain. You talk too much, explain too much, give too much. And then the obvious happens. She already knows everything. What you'll feel, say, post, think. Congratulations, you've become a YouTube tutorial with autoplay on and zero tension. No mystery, no challenge, no respect. Just an open, free, emotional catalog. Meanwhile, the cold man plays at a different level. He doesn't show his hand, he shuffles the deck. She doesn't know if he liked it or if he's bored. She doesn't know if he's distant or strategically absent. She doesn't know if he vanished out of contempt or dominance. And that doubt? It's an aphrodisiac. Uncertainty becomes desire. Discomfort becomes tension. And tension, my friend, is the prelude to respect. The human brain has a delicious flaw. It values what it doesn't understand. What escapes logic. What breaks the pattern. Anything that disturbs the comfort zone dominates. You've seen this. The guy who disappears after a date. The one who doesn't reply instantly. The one who doesn't beg for digital attention. He doesn't vanish because he's rude, he vanishes because he understands the game. While he lives in the elegant silence of calculated absence, you're out there, displaying every detail of your soul like a graduation album. Transparent, readable, predictable, emotional suicide in slow motion. The cruel truth is this. Those who show everything lose their spark. Those who give themselves away easily drain their value. You want to be clear, but excessive emotional clarity is like a clearance item at 90% off. Everyone sees it, but nobody takes it seriously. The cold man isn't a wall. He's a labyrinth. You enter, you try to understand, you look for the exit, and the more you try, the more lost you get. He doesn't impress by what he offers, but by what he denies. It's not about what he says. It's about what he keeps silent. Want a surgical example? He receives a compliment. He doesn't melt, he doesn't return it, he doesn't thank her like a well-trained puppy. He just looks, smirks, and changes the subject. The woman pushes, looks for a reaction, tries to pull more out of him. Him? Nothing. Boom. The game has flipped because his silence has more impact than your gratitude paragraph. Here's your power phrase to tattoo on your emotional forehead. The more you try to be understood, the less you are respected. The more you explain yourself, the less you are worth. The cold man understood this, and that's why he stays quiet, denies, and chooses. Enigma governs. The obvious serves. When this man enters a room, he doesn't need to say a word. His presence speaks for him, and the world listens in silence. Because mystery doesn't scream, it imposes. Number 4, the hierarchy of ice. Welcome to the emotional pyramid, where the desperate line up to please and the cold men take the top in absolute silence. And guess where you are? Right at the bottom, smiling too much, explaining too much, handing out favors as if every good morning were a cry for help. You think respect is earned by being a nice guy. How sweet. It's not earned. It's imposed. And the man who realized that is already 3 floors above you without having said a word. Want to know who's in charge in any room? It's simple. It's the one who doesn't need to prove anything. The one who arrives quietly, chooses where to sit like he already bought the whole building, observes everything, and only speaks when he wants to, and when he does, everyone goes quiet. This man isn't arrogant. He just understood the rule you're still trying to memorize. The world obeys signals, and coldness is one of them, one of the most powerful. A cold man doesn't beg, doesn't compete, doesn't bow. He makes it clear without saying a word. I don't depend on you. I'm not here to impress. I'm comfortable with myself. And that alone eliminates half the competition before the first sip of coffee. Now, you know who laughs too loud, talks non-stop, apologizes for existing, and tries to prove they're cool. Exactly, the one desperate for crumbs of validation. The one willing to crawl for a seat at the table. The emotional man lives on the autopilot of insecurity. He reacts to everything. He wants to be accepted at any cost, and that is exactly why he will never be respected. Meanwhile, the cold man calculates every word as if it were a diamond. That's why, when he speaks, the temperature of the room changes. It's not what he says, it's the contrast. It's the frequency. It's the fact that he doesn't blend in with the average, and anything rare commands reverence. Coldness, my friend, is perceived as unconscious superiority. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. This guy doesn't need me. He isn't here to get attention. He's already won on the inside. And that's unsettling, because whatever doesn't bow dominates. Picture the scene. Two guys in a room, one trying to show he's smart, interesting, enlightened. Basically a walking TED Talk. The other, quiet, observing as if the world were too small for his energy. Who do you respect more? Who seems to have more control? Exactly. The emotional man wants to be accepted. The cold man has already accepted himself. He doesn't need the room to validate him. He is the room. And she feels that. She won't say it, but she feels it. And when she feels it, she respects it. Because nobody wants to lose what seems to have other options. Want the summary? The guy who speaks little, but when he opens his mouth the world pauses, is the same one who dominates the game without raising his voice. It's not magic. It's presence. It's not a gift. It's strategy. He doesn't want to be the center, and that is exactly why he becomes it. And if you still don't get this, congratulations. You'll keep climbing the pyramid on your knees, begging for crumbs, and wondering why the top seems so far away. Write this down to tattoo it on your soul. His silence isn't empty. It's a threat. And a silent threat is worth more than 1,000 desperate speeches from someone begging for attention. Number 5. The rule of the 3 silences. Your biggest problem isn't a lack of content, it's an excess of reaction. You talk too much, reply too fast, deliver everything with the speed of a dog hearing the bag of kibble open. Think you're being spontaneous? You're being emotionally disposable, predictable as a bad plot. Meanwhile, the cold man reigns supreme using a weapon as simple as it is lethal. Silence. But not just any silence. Strategic silence. The kind that weighs more than an answer. The kind that paralyzes more than a scream. The kind that puts you 3 steps ahead without raising your voice. First, the silence after a provocation. Someone pokes you, gets sarcastic, drops that poisonous little joke waiting for your predictable reaction. The average man defends himself. He turns red. He tries to explain. The cold man just looks. 1 second, 2, 3, and just like that, the provocation turns back on the provocateur. The weight returns to the source. Silence exposes the one who tried to dominate. And you, my friend, remain intact, almost cruel in your calmness. Second, the silence after a compliment. This one is for the elite. You get a, "Wow, you're different," and you already reply like a needy golden retriever. "Really? That's great. Wow, thanks so much, ha ha ha." Pathetic. The cold man, He doesn't need to inflate his ego with crumbs. He hears the compliment like he hears the air conditioner. He notices, but doesn't react. Maybe a smirk, maybe not even that. And it's exactly that almost nothing that makes him unforgettable. Because whoever needs the compliment is already a slave to it. Third, the silence after expectation. The woman throws out a bait. She expects a reaction. She wants a gesture, a signal, a confirmation. And you, anxious as always, rush to prove your interest. Wrong. The cold man doesn't rush. He lets time do the work. He understands that presence isn't begged for, it's imposed. And that silence is the constant reminder that he is never too available. He is a rare presence, an invisible crown, impossible to domesticate. These three silences, when used with mastery, create a rare phenomenon. You become a threat. Not in the sense of physical danger, but in the sense that scares the emotional world most. You become uncontrollable, inaccessible, indecipherable. And that, my friend, is the only type of man the world stops to watch. While others explode inside after 2 seconds of provocation, you watch the chaos with the coldness of someone who's already won in advance. Because staying quiet where everyone screams, vanishing where everyone crawls, and containing where everyone overflows, that is true mastery. And the most tragic part, even knowing this works, most will keep reacting like emotional puppets, because they are still slaves to their own desperation. And he who doesn't control his own silence will never be taken seriously. The cold man's presence doesn't ask for permission. It enters, and the whole world feels it. Number 6, the addiction to emotional validation. Can we cut the act? You don't want respect. You want a hug. You want someone to look you in the eyes and say, "You're special, okay?" Like you're an insecure child waiting for a gold star in your emotional notebook. And it's exactly this need for acceptance that turns you into something very specific, invisible. You don't act out of conviction. You act out of reaction. Every sentence of yours is a silent scream of, "Notice me, please." Every forced LOL on WhatsApp is a pathetic attempt to seem lighthearted. Every sappy voice note is just a hidden plea for affection. You aren't living. You're begging for permission to exist. And the name for that isn't authenticity, it's addiction. Emotional addiction with sensitivity packaging. You talk because you want approval. You expose yourself because you want applause. You fake courage, but it's just well-articulated neediness. You aren't honest, you're desperate. And desperation, my friend, is always read as weakness. Want to see the tragedy in action? You send a message and keep checking the read receipt like it's a self-esteem report. Someone else's silence becomes a threat, and you, like a good emotional junkie, reply again, asking if you did something wrong, interpreting absence as an offense. You've become a hostage to the scene but no reply, a digital addict waiting for the next dose of validation. And the worst part? You call that being communicative, being present. What a joke. You're just a high-functioning, needy guy with a script and emotional urgency in every click. A good talker who can't stay quiet for 5 minutes without having an existential crisis. All she has to do is pull away a little and boom, meltdown. You question, you assume, you self-sabotage. Because to you, her silence is a courtroom, but in reality, it's just a mirror, showing with all the elegance of contempt how small you've become trying to be seen. Meanwhile, the cold man doesn't play that game. He doesn't need to be noticed. He is the filter, not the filtered. He doesn't live asking for attention. He chooses where his attention goes. And that is why he is respected. Because he is rare. Because he is selective. Because he is above the emotional flea market where the addicts scream, "Love me, please." He doesn't compete with beggars for crumbs. He doesn't need people to like him to know who he is. He doesn't get desperate to keep a spot in anyone's mind. And guess what? That is exactly why he dominates. He is scarce. You are excessive. Want to change? Start by doing what you fear most. Observe yourself. count how many times a day you manifest just to be remembered. How many times you justify yourself without anyone asking. How many times you speak just to stay on someone's emotional radar. That is the addiction. You feed on reaction like an emotional zombie. You walk around asking for affection like you're asking for spare change. And the most pathetic thing of all, you still think this is love. But real self-respect, my friend, doesn't need a reply. Number 7, start by killing the reflex. Let's get straight to the point. You say you want coldness, but you act like an emotional hamster in a spinning wheel. One ignored good morning, and there you are, restless, sweating, creating mental scripts and Oscar-worthy response plans. Your problem isn't a lack of intelligence, it's an excess of reflex. And as long as you are ruled by it, you won't be ruled by anything else, especially not respect. Real coldness doesn't start with canned lines or a tough guy social media persona. It starts at the exact moment you decide not to react. It's the instant the impulse screams and you stay quiet. When anxiety orders you and you refuse. When neediness whispers and you shut the door. Practice now. Provoked? Silence. Ignored? Wait. Distorted? Observe. Because sometimes, the greatest power is letting the echo embarrass the one who tried to hit you. Emptiness, when well positioned, speaks louder than any pathetic attempt to be right. Meanwhile, the average man lives on high alert. He barks at everything. He chases shadows. He reacts to absence as if he were being slapped. The name for that isn't sensitivity. It's the conditioning of an emotionally trained dog. And he still calls this lack of control intensity. How cute. The cold man, he isn't pulled by the world, he pushes the world. He watches the impulse be born and decides if he'll use it. He doesn't run, he dictates the pace. And the first step is simple but lethal. Kill the reflex. Break the urge to explain yourself. Eliminate the addiction to replying. Swallow that. Are we okay? You send every time she gets cold. Every second of resistance is emotional weightlifting. Every imposed silence is a brick of authentic coldness being laid. And then, as if by magic, or rather strategy, something changes. People start testing you less. They try to read you and fail. They hesitate, because now, the one who decides when and if to react is you. You stop being the effect and become the cause. You stop chasing and start being followed. Because he who imposes the rhythm commands, and he who commands doesn't justify himself. Want respect? Then learn. Control the only thing no one can take from you, your reaction. Because as long as your response is available to the first stimulus, you are sellable. And worse, you're cheap. And you know the price to leave this cycle? Letting go of the anxiety to seem nice, and embracing with pride the presence of someone who seems untouchable. Number 8, the respect you want is on the other side of your neediness. Let's kill the illusion. You don't want to be strong. You want to be accepted. You want emotional applause. You want compassionate looks and that magic phrase, "He has a good heart." How beautiful. Too bad the world doesn't operate on an indie movie script. When you open your soul hoping for empathy, what she hears is a siren of emotional weakness. You still haven't realized that a needy man isn't respected. He is tolerated for as long as possible. You think venting creates connection. It creates relief for her. Because there she realizes she doesn't need to fear you, nor admire you. Just observe your collapse from the safe distance of someone who has already decided you aren't a threat. This whole "I want to be sincere with my feelings" bit of yours is pretty, in a diary. On the emotional battlefield, it's a request for execution. When you say "I'm hurt," what she hears is "I'm defenseless, manipulate me at your leisure." You think you're touching her heart. You are, with a shovel. burying the last gram of respect that still existed. Think I'm exaggerating? Look at your dating history. How many times were you sincere, dedicated, transparent, and yet ignored like a resume for a closed job opening? This didn't happen despite your devotion. It happened because of it. Unfiltered emotion is luxury begging. And begging, my friend, is the art of becoming loud and invisible at the same time. The respect you want doesn't come with words. It comes with presence. Presence that doesn't explain itself. That doesn't justify itself. That doesn't bow. And presence is only imposed with coldness. Because coldness, contrary to what your emotional head thinks, isn't a blockage. It's a boundary. It's stopping the trade of dignity for emotional crumbs. It's understanding that not every silence is an invitation to panic. That not every rejection is a call to chase. That not every absence needs a reply. Sometimes the best argument is the gaze that doesn't move, the absence that doesn't apologize. But you are so conditioned to seek approval that now you think coldness is a sin, that it's vanity, that it's pride, wrong, it's defense, it's sanity. It's what's left when you finally understand that the world respects those who do not bend. The cold man doesn't need people to like him. He doesn't operate on notice me. He is the filter, not the content. He is the frame, not the request. He has already validated himself internally, and that is why the world goes quiet when he appears, because he doesn't speak much. But when he is silent, he says everything, still waiting for recognition for your emotional effort. Don't hold your breath. The world doesn't reward good intentions. It rewards those who look like they don't need it. Those who know how to leave without saying goodbye. Those who impose presence even in silence. Those who watch the chaos without getting mixed up in it. Now choose. Keep asking for approval like an emotional orphan trying to find a lap, or step through the mirror and discover that on the other side of the cold, there isn't affection, there is power. And power, my friend, doesn't ask for permission. It walks in and shuts the whole room up. Number 9, the new rule. Never show, always control. If you want to get out of the emotional hole you're digging with your transparency shovel, start by accepting this. Showing what you feel all the time isn't depth, it's cheap exposure. The new rule is simple and fatal. Never show, always control. And no, this isn't about becoming an emotional statue. It's about mastering what you become when the pressure hits. When they poke you, you don't hit back. When they vanish, you don't run. When they try to force a reaction, you don't give it. Because coldness starts exactly where your desire to be a victim dies. Want to know if you're playing the game right? Pay attention to how you walk into a room. Are you hunched over, shoulders forward, looking at the floor like you're apologizing for taking up space? Fix that now. Spine straight, eyes forward, chin slightly up. You aren't begging to exist. You're occupying your space like you already know you own the room. Your body language gives everything away before you even open your mouth, and the world reads it fast. If your body says, "I'm lost," nobody is going to stop to listen to your lecture on self-confidence. You've already lost before the first hello, and stop this habit of apologizing for everything. Learn to live with the discomfort of silence. Made a mistake. Fix it with action. But don't beg for emotional forgiveness. He who justifies himself too much shows he's still addicted to approval. And that destroys your authority faster than any mistake could. Want to elevate your presence? Control time. Reply slowly. Speak with pauses. Use silence like someone who knows they are worth more quiet than anyone trying to explain themselves. Haste is the scream of the desperate. A pause is the whisper of the dominant. You don't need to look busy. You need to look selective. You don't need to be liked. You need to be indecipherable. Controlled breathing, firm voice, calm gaze. All of these are weapons of war in a world where everyone is shouting, and he who speaks little, when he does speak, makes the room spin. Coldness isn't isolation. It's a filter. It separates you from the hysterical crowd and puts you in a place where only those in charge breathe. The average man reacts. The cold man decides. The average man begs. The cold man defines. The average man tries to be heard. The cold man imposes silence. And if someone says all this is an exaggeration, of course they will, because they've already accepted being forgettable. You want to be remembered? Then understand, control is power, coldness is strategy, and a well-placed silence is absolute dominance. You won't look distant, you'll look unreachable, and guess what? That is what truly attracts. Brutal closing. His silence screams louder than your venting. The emotional man lives on his knees, asking for validation like someone begging for emotional crumbs with "Please see me" tattooed on his forehead. He lives explaining everything, begging for acceptance, trying to convince the world he has a good heart. How sad. Because that is exactly why he lives life being ignored, discarded, forgotten. Nobody respects someone who enters a room apologizing for existing. Nobody admires someone who won't shut up. Nobody follows someone who needs to be accepted just to breathe. You want to be loved, right? How cute. Everyone does. But the cold man understood something you're still trying to type into your notes app. Love without respect is charity. It's affection given with an expiration date. It's pity. And when that date hits, my friend, you are replaced as if you never existed. And the best part? Without guilt. Because in her head, you were already an expired item on the emotional shelf since the second "Are we okay?" you sent for no reason. The cold man doesn't need to be nice. He is raw presence. He doesn't plead for attention. He attracts it. He doesn't shout for space. He occupies it all without a sound. He doesn't ask to be understood. He is respected for being indecipherable. And when he vanishes, the echo of his silence weighs more than your needy paragraph in her inbox. Still think being sensitive is going to save you? What refined naivety. It's going to bury you with "he was too nice" honors. They'll put you on the shelf of the available, the harmless, the too accessible to be desired. And there you'll rot waiting to be valued while she falls for the man who never asked for anything but took everything. Meanwhile, the guy who doesn't apologize for breathing, who speaks little, who doesn't need to justify every sigh. He's the one remembered. Called cold, arrogant, egocentric, but never forgotten. Because he doesn't beg, he imposes. Because he understood that coldness isn't an absence of feeling. It's mastery. It's presence without desperation. You've tried everything. Being kind, attentive, emotionally available. And the result? You're the permanent plan B. Maybe now it's time to try the opposite. Stop trying. Stop explaining. Stop showing. Maybe it's time to go cold. To stay quiet. To vanish strategically, not for revenge. For respect. Because too much presence becomes background noise. But a well-placed absence becomes a legend. Comment "I am ice" if you got the message. And if you have the courage to disappear for a while, maybe for the first time someone will actually miss you.